And the stock market was a remarkable tear earlier this year. Well, there's one group that was left behind, healthcare. Now that the market's being polarized on China worries, could the safe, consistent healthcare cohort be, let's say, close to being ready to make a comeback? I'd like to say ready for a comeback, but you know how hard this market is. Take Teladoc Health, TDOC, one of the world's leading virtual healthcare providers. Regular viewers know I love the idea of telemedicine. And you know what? We've actually been behind this particular company since it was a tiny little startup. At a time when so many of the Democratic presidential candidates are campaigning on a single-payer healthcare system, in part because they want to rein in out-of-control costs, I think it's worth focusing on the innovative companies that could deliver enormous savings regardless of what happens in Washington. The whole point of telemedicine is that you don't actually need to physically go to the doctor's office. For every single difference, sometimes it's enough to do a video conference. And that ends up costing you and the system a lot less money. Now, Teladoc just reported a solid quarter last week, and while the stock initially got hit off the news, it's been roaring ever since, at least until today's pullback. This one's had a pretty good year, up 24%, but it's still down substantially from its all-time highs last September, including a real downdraft over the course of March and April. So is Teladoc's recent rebound sustainable? Let's check in with Jason Gorevic, the CEO of Teladoc Health, to get a better sense of how the company's doing and where it's headed. Mr. Gorevic, welcome back to Mad Money.
Jim, how you doing?
How are you, Jason? Have a seat. Now, I have to say, I'm very proud of what you've accomplished. In the time since we started talking to each other, how many lives have you now covered versus then?
Oh, well, we have 26 million covered lives paid in the U.S., plus another 10 million who are on a visit fee only. But, you know, now we're a global company with a quarter of our business outside the U.S.
And I bet you could handle twice, even 3 times that. You're set up for that, aren't you?
You know, actually, we test our systems to 10x our current peak volumes.
Well, that's unbelievable. Okay, so people are going to say, that's not possible, not enough doctors, this is really ridiculous. You're hyping this company. What do we say to that?
I think you have to look at our growth trajectory. We launched in 2002. It took us until 2015 to do our first million visits. 2 years later, in 17, we did 1 million visits in a single year. Last quarter, we did 1 million visits in just a quarter. On that growth trajectory, I feel pretty good about our prospects.
Well, you should. Now, you heard my introduction. One of the things that we're about is the capitalist system. We think the capitalist system cures a lot more things than people realize. How come when I hear about the so-called runaway health, I don't hear someone then saying in Washington, wait a second, there are capitalist ways to fix the problem. Take a look what Teladoc's doing. Why don't they talk about you?
Well, I think for the first time, the federal government's getting behind virtual care really firmly. So CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, is making virtual care part of the Medicare Advantage programs, which cover 20 million Americans.
Right. What also I think is most, well, I shouldn't say exciting because it's tough, but this is, National Mental Health Month, okay? And I'm passionate about this. We support NAMI on the show. I support NAMI personally. And what I'm trying to understand is how is that even possible that you have done such a great job with psychiatry, with help, with mental help?
Well, Jim, I mean, as you point out, more than half of the people who need mental health care don't get the care that they need. And that's because of access to care issues, stigmas associated with mental health, and quite frankly, cost of care. Right. Virtual care is really the great equalizer when it comes to mental health. And that's why we've doubled our visit volume year over year on this past quarter. And our mental health revenues are growing more than 50% a year. Virtual care is the best alternative for mental health.
Right, I've been trying to blow up this stigma. It is really important. It's one of the things I think it was one of the most important causes I have. How has this made it so that the stigma is overcome?
Well, you know, in a lot of places in America, I hear from therapists all the time, people won't park their car in front of my office because of this stigma. We talk to PTSD patients who, the first time they're interacting with a therapist, they're in the closet on the phone with the closet door closed because they can't face the world outside, much less bring themselves to go into a therapist's office. And then they graduate gradually toward a video conference with a therapist and then making their way into support groups. Well, so this is really a way that we can bring care to the patients who need it most. And that helps to overcome.
Well, I'm so glad you said it. Even just for the people who are watching right now, there'll be people out there who say, "Listen, maybe I can do Teladoc and not be embarrassed." Shouldn't be embarrassed to begin with. I get that. Now, I look at what your company's done, and I say to myself, "Okay, I'm not a millennial, but I'm still worth something." Now, you know, we're not all in the dustbin yet, and we're not in the dumpster. But I would pay to have a service for Teladoc, which would just be monitoring my health, so that I don't have to constantly go to all the doctors when you get to my age. Hey, it's every 4 months, Jim. It's every 6 months. I don't want to go unless there's something's wrong. Teladoc could be the answer.
Well, that's true. And now we have a global network of over 50,000 medical experts of all different specialties. And we've said chronic care management and remote monitoring are the next frontier for us.
You think you can provide it?
Yeah, there's no question. There are devices out there that are becoming more ubiquitous, whether it's a watch that you wear or a monitor that you wear or a blood glucose monitor or even just a Bluetooth-enabled scale that gives us the data that enables us to interact with you when you really need it and leave you alone when you don't.
Okay, so let's say someone doesn't have a healthcare plan. Can they still go to Teladoc?
Yeah, absolutely. We provide care through CVS on a retail basis.
Will you still do that after the Aetna merger?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We have relationships both with CVS and with Aetna before the merger and even better after the merger. We also have our behavioral health care resources available on a direct-to-consumer basis. Right? So that's one where people reach out. They don't necessarily need to be part of a plan that offers it. And, of course, if their plan does, it makes it that much easier.
Good. I wanted to spend more time on that because it's National Mental Health Month than I would on the numbers. The numbers are there, okay? But I wanted to let people hear what you're offering because I think it's really important for America, okay? Really important for the people. And I know international, but that's what I care about passionately. That's Jason Gorevic, CEO of Teladoc Health. It's a great company, and it's a great stock, but you just heard all the great things that they do for people who are worried about stigma or worried about things that would make it so that they wouldn't normally get the care. And that's a shame. They can change it. Mad Money's back after the break. Booyah! Jim Cramer here from Mad Money. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube. Click here to subscribe and get the jump on my exclusives with CEOs, plus market news, investing advice, and a whole lot more.